Yeah, sure. It's everywhere. It's everywhere else. No, I get you. No, I don't know. I don't think about it. I don't think so.
Daughter, 30 years, 30.
Oh, my son's going to be 20. So we're not far.
No, my mind is
Yeah, I hear you.
So,
Everywhere. Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If I can ask you to take your seats for just a moment. We're about to begin today's program. We want to thank you for joining us for this very special and meaningful afternoon. Very quick, just for etiquette, if you can make sure that your cell phones are either turned off or on silent at this time. Further, today's presentation can be videotaped and it can be photos, but no live streaming. So please make sure that you do not live stream today's presentation, but you are allowed to take photos and video. To begin today's program, we're going to begin with our national anthems. I ask you to please rise. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Kolod balevav penima, nefesh Yehudi homia, ulfate mizrach gadima, ayin letzion Sophia. O Lord of the tikvatenu, hatikva bat shnot alpaim, liotam chofshi be'atzenu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. Liotam chofshi be'arzenu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. May remain standing, please, as we observe a moment of silence in memory of our heroes. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. From whence shall my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Shila ma'alot, esayin el harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Hashem, Usei shamayim va'aretz, al yiten lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo hishan shomei Yisrael. Hashem shomrecha, Hashem etzilcha, al yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakecha, veyarecha balayla. Hashem yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Hashem yishmor tzedcha uvoecha, me'ata ve'ad olam. You may be seated. I'd like to welcome Rabbi Baden to the bima.
Good afternoon. I'm Rabbi Baden of Temple Sinai, and I'm honored to be able to introduce our program this afternoon on behalf of all the sponsoring congregations, Ner Tamid, Midbar Kodesh, Temple Beth Sholom, and Temple Sinai. I want to thank Rabbi Goodman and Temple Beth Sholom for hosting us, and thank you to Magen Adom for bringing us together for this very meaningful experience. It is especially powerful to gather today, one day after the heroic rescue of 4 of the hostages. We are so grateful that Noah Argamani, Almog Meir Yijan, Andrei Kozlov, and Shlomi Ziv were returned to Israel by the IDF after 8 long months. And we fervently pray for the safe return of all the other hostages that remain in captivity. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who frees the captive, and let us say, Amen. It is interesting to note that this week our Torah portion, Naso, opens with the description of the procedures for taking a census, for counting the people. The verb that is used is naso, and in the context of our opening lines of our Torah portion, Moses and Aaron were instructed to naso et harosh, to lift up the heads of the tribe in order to count the people for the census. But we know that naso, the word for lift up, can mean so much more than just raising heads. Naso also means to carry, to sustain, to support. And that is what we are doing here today. We are taking note of our mishpacha, our family in Israel, and we are performing the mitzvah of Naso. We are carrying them in our hearts, and we are helping to sustain them through the support of Magen Adom. Founded almost a century ago, Magen Adom is Israel's emergency services system, but it is so much more than that. It is where Israelis turn in moments of crisis for help, healing, and safety. From the ambulances that treat people injured in terror attacks and traffic accidents, to the blood stored at the Marcus Blood Center that is used in every hospital to keep people alive, to the over 31,000 volunteers that offer emergency care with love and humanity. Magen Adom is relied upon by Israelis of every background, faith, and ethnicity. It is committed to caring for everyone, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and everyone else, and to the Jewish value of protecting and sustaining life. but nothing could have prepared the men and women of MDA for the events of October 7th. When Hamas terrorists laid siege to the communities on the Gaza border, attacking violently, Israelis immediately called Magen Adom's emergency phone number. Patiently, dispatchers offered instructions to minimize injuries and save lives. Paramedics and EMTs from all over the country then ran directly into the line of fire to reach the wounded. At least 3 medics were killed while working to save others. Some stabilized patients at makeshift clinics in synagogues and parking lots, while others transported the wounded in MICUs, armored ambulances, and helicopters over dangerous terrain to nearby hospitals. Many lives were saved and serious injuries treated because of these brave individuals. In the months since that tragic day, Magen Adom teams have been working around the clock to support the growing needs on the ground in Israel. They are on the scene to treat victims of terror and rocket attacks within minutes. They are there to treat those injured by the relentless bombing at Israel's northern border, working closely with the IDF to keep the population safe. And just a month ago, when thousands of drones, as well as cruise and ballistic missiles, were headed to Israel from Iran, Magen Adom teams with a fleet of more than 2,000 rescue vehicles were ready for anything. Luckily, Israel and its allies were successful in preventing casualties. But when a 7-year-old girl was seriously injured by shrapnel from an intercepted missile, it was Magen Adom's volunteers who provided her with life-saving care. But none of these everyday miracles are possible without us. We in this room are not simply supporters of Magen Adom. We are its life source, part of a legacy that stretches back nearly a century and is responsible for saving millions and millions of lives. Without the dedication and generosity of American friends of Magen Adom, Magen Adom simply would not exist. I know that, like me, many of you are grieving our losses and are worried about the future. But this afternoon, I would like to invite all of us to join together in this program dedicated to hope. I now invite you to direct your attention to the screens.
Magen Adom. In 1930, while dreaming of establishing a Jewish state in Israel, Magen Adom already evolves into an active organization for the benefit of the residents in the land. In May 1948, alongside with the establishment of the State of Israel,
על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל, היא מדינת ישראל.
MDA, along with the IDF, the police, and the firefighters, become the official rescue and security organizations of the young state. MDA plays a crucial role in establishing the IDF Medical Corps, contributing 21 ambulances for its formation. In 1973, during the Yom Kippur War, my father, whom I hadn't seen for many months, for he served as an MDA ambulance driver transporting wounded soldiers across the war zone of Sinai Desert. All MDA ambulances were enlisted in the Israeli Defense Forces. Today, MDA operates 1,400 rescue vehicles, helicopters, ambulances, bulletproof vehicles, motorcycle and boats, scattered across dozens of stations and emergency centers nationwide, with 30,000 volunteers and 3,500 MDA employees. They were the first to enter battlefield on early Shabbat hours on October 7th, risking their lives to save civilians and soldiers along the border. 14 ambulances were burned or damaged while attempting to save lives. It's needless to mention that, according to the UN, shooting at an official Red Cross representative is a severe war crime.
4 MDA volunteers lost their lives.
3 were abducted by Hamas terrorists to Gaza, and dozens were injured. During the Iron Swords War, MDA launched the largest and the most secure blood bank in the world, capable of processing, supplying, and storing the large blood supply required for wartime or natural disaster. providing for thousands of injured and affected civilians and soldiers. In these days, MDA prepare for any wartime or natural disaster scenario that may occur in this neighborhood where we live, the Middle East. Magen Adom gives us strength, hope, faith, and assurance that someone is watching over us.
So as of now, you can hear who are we and what we do as Magen Adom. I want to introduce myself. My name is Ilana Michael. I'm the director of Magen Adom in Southwest region. I'm so happy and to be here and welcome all of you. I'm in awe to see so many people here, and I'm really, really appreciate taking time on your Sunday and being with us. I would like to take this moment to thank the sponsor of this event, Temple Bet Sholom, Congregation Ner Tamid, Temple Sinai and Midbar Kodesh Temple. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. I would like also to recognize Temple Bet Sholom for their generous donation during October 7. They just were amazing to see. I'm emotional because it was so. I was in awe when what they did. They sponsor intensive care and Miku ambulance, and also in our underground blood center, they sponsored the lobby. And I would like to really, Rabbi Goodman, where are you? He's not here yet. Oh, I just want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a friend and being here for us and for Israel and for all the Jewish and all our paramedics. And would like to welcome Rabbi Tactile to come to the stage, please.
Thank you, Ilana. It is my distinct honor, really my zchut, my merit, to introduce a true hero among first responders in Israel. Lieutenant Colonel Raphael Herbst works in the International Relations Department of MDA, Deputy Director of the International Relations Department, and Senior Paramedic and Instructor. For over 30 years, he treated patients out of MDA's Jerusalem region and now works out of the organization's headquarters in Or Yehuda. He was born in Rehovot and began his career with MDA at the age of 15 as a youth volunteer. And he mentioned to me earlier that one of his sons is turning 15, and they will start doing shifts on an ambulance together. He's become an integral part of MDA's world-class training program, instructing and mentoring incoming first responders and serving as team leader for MDA's mobile intensive care unit ambulances. Over the course of his career, he's responded to many high-profile emergencies and terror attacks. In addition to his work in the field as a paramedic, he works as MDA's International Relations Department, as an IDF soldier, as lieutenant colonel in the Home Front Command, as district population officer. He's also an active member, volunteer of the Emergency and Security Committee for the local community leadership of Har Choma in Jerusalem. He holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's degree in disaster management from Ben-Gurion University. He's married with 4 children. Welcome, Lieutenant Colonel.
Thank you very much. The introduction was longer than my presentation. But before I begin, I would really, really like to thank you all, because October 7th, 6:30 in the morning when I woke up, I know there isn't any word in Hebrew for what we went through, for what I feel. So I'm not so sure if there's a word in English. Such dark times, loss of appetite, loss of happiness. We lost our dear ones, our friends. We treated our friends, those who were wounded were our friends, our family. Everyone in Israel is affected. And my brothers and sisters at Magen David Adom, standing at the front lines, leaving our families behind. And the horrors that we've seen, which unfortunately is not spoken enough. And at these dark times, which I can't even tell you how I felt, to get a phone call from Ilana, "What do you need?" I asked her, "What do you mean, what do we need?" She said, "We have people here in the States, we have your back." And this, I think, was my first smile ever since the beginning of the war, to understand that we are not alone, because we have your support. And I wanted to tell you, first of all, thank you very much. And to ask you a favor, please don't stop. We need it. Your text message saying that the healing, the caring, the hug, your friendship, that means the world for us. In the times of darkness, the first beacon of light was to know that we have brothers and sisters with us, that never again is now that you're here with us. So first of all, in behalf of Magen David Adom and myself, and the people in Israel, Toda Rabba. Thank you very much. I don't know how many of you know about Magen David Adom, but as you can see, Magen David Adom is Israel's medical Iron Dome. Everywhere anything happens in Israel, we are there. And I want to share with you the spirit of my friends who are at Magen David Adom and give you some few examples. In order to save lives in Israel, we need to be everywhere. To be everywhere, that means that everyone needs to be part of us. Especially now with these dark ages. Tell me, where else in the world would you see a Muslim female wearing a hijab, walking around with the emblem of Magen David Adom or Magen David on her chest? Where else in the world will you see that, and that could be normal? Well, Magen David Adom, everybody is part of our organization. When it comes to saving lives, we are colorblind. It doesn't matter who we save, it doesn't matter which organization, it doesn't matter if it's a soldier, a civilian, a Sephardi, Ashkenazi, a Muslim, secular. Lives matter. We cherish lives. It's 6:30 in the morning. Very soon we had a very clear picture, and if you take a look at the screen, you can see all the red flags all around Gaza. Straight away we understood that we have a huge challenge. Every flag indicates of someone in a place that needs medical attention. And unfortunately, our challenge is we cannot access everywhere. We had to do two types of prime caring points. The first type was an example of this. We had to turn a synagogue into a clinic, into a field clinic. And our paramedics were there for 36 hours. One of them was Menachem. And you can see the clinic inside the synagogue. And every few hours, a helicopter would land, and they could only take 3 patients from the clinic to the helicopter. And this was going on for about 36 hours. If you take a look on the right side of the picture, you can see a guy sitting with a prayer book and saying Tehillim. If you take a close look behind him, you will see, unfortunately, bodies. But these are bodies of our brothers and sisters. We all knew them. We had to treat patients while our best friends were brutally murdered. Two ladies, two females gave birth and should give birth at the hospital, not in a field clinic. And we couldn't transport these women to the hospital. We had to wait because we had to save lives for the more crucial patients. And if you look at the back, you can see exactly where those patients were lying down. And those who treated these patients, like Menachem, he lives in Kibbutz Ad. His family, his wife and his kids were left at the kibbutz. And he was certain that when he comes back home, if he comes back home, probably nobody will be at the home over there because the terrorists are attacking. But he decided to stay for 36 hours to fight for lives of other people. This is another type of a primary care point. At different junctions, we were waiting for people to bring injured people by civilian cars, by army cars. And every once in a while, a bike with terrorists would come nearby a junction. We had to clear out the junction and run away. But you can see the ambulance waiting for those patients. So once they arrive, you can straight away treat them and transport them fastly to the hospital. Hamas has an elite unit, which is called the Nokhba. The Nokhba elite were the ones who went inside Israel. And one of the bodies in Sderot, we found a map and a piece of paper. And the piece of paper's orders in Arabic, I would translate because your Arabic is probably as good as my French. The first line says, conquer the police station. The second line says, conquer the fire station. And the third line says, conquer Magen David Adom station. They wanted to make sure that nobody will stay alive. They knew that if they would conquer the police station, the Magen David Adom station, wounded people will be brought to the station, they could kill them and make sure that they're doing their job. This was the intention. And you can see in Sderot the vehicle at the roundabout and their heads looking for where's the Magen David Adom station. Lucky for us, they didn't understand that the station is at the right place. More than dozens of wounded people during that day, and unfortunately those that also we couldn't save have been brought to the station. If they would have conquered the station, a lot other people would have lost their lives. That was their intention. If you take a look in Sderot, 6:40 in the morning, we already got notification of terrorists running inside Sderot. And soon you will see an ambulance driving by. That they shot the ambulance, we already understood that we are target. You have to understand, for us it was the first time that we've ever been a target for terrorists. Nobody shoots at an ambulance. Who shoots at an ambulance? And I've been to dozens of terror attacks through my life. And you can see the ambulance just went through, and they have been shot. Look at the GoPro camera on the image on the left. You can see the Nokhba terrorists aiming with their weapons at the ambulance and shooting, so the ambulance won't be able to save lives. The other ambulance, they shot every single direction because they thought people were hiding inside. RPG shot at the ambulance, and the ambulance that you saw before, you can see the blood of the driver who's been critically injured, taken to one of the paramedics' house, and for there lying down for about 4 hours until we had the ability to rescue him. I want to talk about the spirit of the people in Israel, not only about the spirit of Magen David Adom. People were standing in lines to give blood. I don't know how many of you are aware, but Magen David Adom were Israel's national vampires. By law, all the blood collected in Israel is being done by Magen David Adom. And the mortality rate in Ada today of the soldiers is 6.3. That figure probably doesn't mean anything to you, but the best figure that they managed to reach up to now was 14.6. The American forces in Iraq and other previous wars and escalations that we had, and that was for two main reasons. The first reason, fast and rapid transportation of wounded people to the hospital by the IDF. And the second reason, the first time that soldiers are receiving whole blood units at the battlefield. That's never been done before. And because of those two things, fast transportation and whole blood at the field, that was given by Magen David Adom, managed to save a lot of soldiers at the battlefield. We actually had to tell people at the end of the day to go back home because more blood, people wanted to give more blood than we actually needed. I want to talk about the spirit of our call takers in Israel. In Israel, the National Dispatch by Magen David Adom, the 101, is different than in the States. In the States, you call the 911, and they refer you to either the police, the fire station. In Israel, the police have their own line, fire station have their own line, and Magen David Adom have their own line. All the call takers are paramedics. I want you to hear the phone call from Guy, who was at the Nova party, ran away, called and asked for help. I apologize, it's in Hebrew. We have subtitles. I know that some of you will be a little bit far to read the subtitles, so I will say what's written down over there.
מה זה לוועידה? לוועידה עם מי?
עם אבא שלי.
שנייה רגע.
צריך מסוק, תקשיבי, צריך מסוק.
אין בעיה, המסוק יגיע, מה הטלפון של אבא שלך? אני מעלה אותו, לא לנתק.
הלו?
אבא, אני אוהב אותך.
מה קרה? איפה אתה, גיא? הזיקו אותך?
אני אוהב אותך מאוד, אבא.
גיא, מה קרה, גיא? גיא? מה אתה אומר?
אני בסדר.
איפה אתה אבל? תגיד לי איפה אתה?
אני נמצא בין רעים לנרעם.
מתי הזיקו אותך? גיא, גם אני אוהב אותך, אבל תגיד לי, תספר לי, מה זאת אומרת? מה, הזיקו אותך לצבא או איפה אתה נמצא?
לא, אני הייתי במסיבה.
מה היית?
Guy was running away, hid on a tree, lost his phone, called Magen David Adom, and he asked for a helicopter, and he said a lot of people need medical attention, and then he knew that it's probably something going to happen. He asked for us to put his father on a conference line. And the dispatcher was with him until the moment he was kidnapped to Gaza. Unfortunately, we know that Guy was brutally murdered, and Hamas is still holding his body captive. This is one example of hundreds of thousands of phone calls that we received that day. I won't be able to sound to you anymore because I'm already finding it too difficult to hear them. I want to talk about four of my friends, because this was the first time that we lost people in line of duty. We're not an army unit, Magen David Adom. We're here to save lives. It's the first time that we lost paramedics. The first paramedic is Abuya. He was an ambulance driver, volunteer, age of 76. When he reached 74, we asked Abuya to retire to pension, and he said no. We said, what do you mean no? He says, if I volunteer, I will set an example for the youth generation for them to volunteer as well. And he continued volunteering. October 7th in Kibbutz Be'eri, rented out with his medical bag out of his house, and he was murdered together with his grandchildren by Hamas. Chaimov never did shifts on Shabbat. Shabbat was a sacred day for him. He said, this is the only day I'm not doing shifts. 6:30, as the siren started working in the Tivot, he said to his wife, I know I usually don't do shifts on Shabbat. He went and took an ambulance, and while driving the ambulance from the station towards his house to be on alert, a terrorist was standing in front of the ambulance and shot him dead. Ronen Engel ran from his house in Be'eri with a medical bag. He was kidnapped by Hamas. Unfortunately, we know that he was murdered as well, and they still hold his body captive. And I want to talk about a very dear friend, Amit. Amit, when she was 6 years old, she lost her father for cancer, and her dream was to become a doctor. And at the age of 18, she had to decide whether to do her national service or go to the army. She decided she wants to become a paramedic. She was a great paramedic, and she was the youngest instructor at the paramedic course. Usually we only take the most qualified, the best paramedics to become instructors, and she was the youngest instructor. She was that good. October 7th, she woke up. She was told to go to Netivot to take an ambulance, and she said, nope. The people in the kibbutz know I'm a paramedic. I know that probably wounded people will be brought into the clinic. So she went to the clinic. We were in touch with her a couple of times during that day. She had the opportunity to save her life. She was offered a ride out of the kibbutz. She said, no, I'm staying to treat the patients. About in the afternoon, the terrorists came inside the clinic. They shot Amit. She called her family. She said goodbye while they were shooting in the background. Then the terrorists came back inside, and they shot her again in the head to make sure that she was dead. Amit was murdered with her gloves on her hands while she was treating patients. And this is the spirit of the paramedics that we have. She could have saved her life, but she cared of other people's lives. She did everything she could to save other people's life. I just wanted to share you that Amit had a beautiful voice, amazing voice. She loved singing. She recorded the voice, she recorded the song, and the band that heard that song re-recorded it again together with the voice and presented it to her, to a family. I would like you to hear that song because the words are a bit horrific, and may that be in the memory of Amit. By the way, you can see Gilad Erdan holding the picture of Amit at the UN. Unfortunately, the impact wasn't as big as we'd hoped it would be. Look what a beautiful paramedic we had.
שום דבר לא יפגע בי,
Nothing can hurt me.
שום דבר לא אישה, לא כדור מחבלים, שום דבר.
Not a woman, not terrorist, no bullets can
ככה
hurt me.
נשבעתי להכריח אותי להורים.
This is the word I swore to my siblings and parents.
בכיתי בלילות ודאגתי בימים.
I cried during the nights and worried during the days.
פחדתי שמשהו יפגע בהורים.
I was afraid that if anything happened to me, it would hurt my parents.
וקולו של אבי מהדהד לי בראש כבר שנים.
My father's voice echoes within me for years.
אם יקרה לך משהו,
If anything was to happen to
אין
me,
לי טעם לחיים,
there is no use for my father to keep living.
אין לי טעם לחיים,
No need to live, no need for tomorrow.
טעם למחר.
This is her mother and her siblings. if you're standing above my grave.
כנראה שלא עמדתי בהבטחתי.
I probably didn't manage to fulfill my promise. I apologize with my life.
בחיי מצטער בחיי מצטער בחיי
שום דבר לא יפגע בי, שום דבר
Nothing can hurt me.
לא אישה, לא כדור מחבלים,
שום דבר.
May this be in memory of Amit and our fallen brothers and sisters, and we pray for the safe return of the hostages and full recovery of our friends. It was important for me to share with you the spirit of the people who are at Magen David Adom, that you should know who we are, how much we cherish life. And despite everything I said, I wanted to finish with a small note of happiness of yesterday's, the hostages that were released. Every ambulance in Israel has a picture of a hostage. The solidarity of Magen David Adom with our brothers and sisters, every ambulance has a picture of a hostage, and every time a hostage comes back, we take off the picture from the back of the ambulance.
אנדרי, כמה אנחנו שמחים שבאת הביתה וקרוב לכולם, בעזרת השם.
Thank you very much. And again, please don't stop caring. We really appreciate for you standing together with us and standing for us. Toda Rabah.
Wow. Thank you, Raphael, for coming all the way from Israel to be with us and for that meaningful presentation. As someone who protects and serves through Magen David Adom and the IDF, Raphael contributes so much to helping keeping Israelis safe. I want to express my appreciation for all he does every day, every minute. And as you heard from our rabbi before, his son going to continue being our paramedic. So as you just heard and saw, Magen David paramedic Amit Man, just 20 years old, was killed, and while working, saving life in Kibbutz Be'eri clinic, the video did not show, but one of her patients from the clinic who survived said of her that even when she had done everything for the patient there, she kept holding their hands and to encourage them that they're not alone. And he called her Amit the angel. But showing hands, how many are you cried on October 7 and the day I follow? Because I know I cry and I keep crying even now. So all of us are here. Truthfully, there's days that I didn't know when I'm going to stop crying. But Amit and her following medics and more than 30,000 Magen David volunteers who their job is saving lives didn't have a choice. As you saw, Amit and many like her, instead of running away, they stay and they stay and they stay to save lives, despite of all the dangers around them. We are here tonight to stand and support the life-saving and offered of Magen David Adom. I know many of you already giving, and you've done so generous. And also our paramedics, and as Revael is here, done a lot. But tonight, I ask you to consider to giving again in memory of Adi and Amit, in memory of her spirit, or perhaps of memory of our paramedics that are no longer with us. If you saw in the lobby, there is close to 30 of them that lost their life, but trying to save life. So there are pledges on each table. If you consider to give again, I really appreciate it. And today is helping all of us to continue saving lives again and again and again. Am Yisrael Chai.
I want to echo the words that Ilana just spoke. And I share with you briefly, yesterday morning we had a bar mitzvah, and I was talking to the young bar mitzvah boy, and I was telling him about an experience we had in Israel right after October 7th. Rabbi Tektil actually was with me. We were both in a hospital room where a young soldier was laying on his bed, almost dead in intensive care. He was in one of those units that go to war with dogs, and they were going into a tunnel, and a grenade was launched at them. And the dog, whose name was Jack, actually jumped on the grenade and saved the young soldier who was badly, badly injured. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, we had a FaceTime with this young man who's doing very, very greatly, thank God. The reason why he survived was the speed with which Magen David Adom transported him back to Israel after he suffered that horrible, horrible event in Gaza. We really have the ability to help. I know that we feel far away. I know that we feel on the other side of the ocean. But let me tell you, everything that we can do helps in a big way. So once again, you've heard me, if you're members of my congregation, I do it almost every week. If not, you're here today, so you can't escape it. Please, please help this wonderful organization in doing the work that only they can do in saving our young men and women from a certain death at the hands of our enemies. Thank you very, very much. Okay, 1 second. Oops. See, when you work with Magen David Adom, they're all red folders. That's part of the problem. I am really, really honored to introduce our guest speaker, our special guest tonight, Mousab Hassan Yousef. Mousab was born in Ramallah and grew up in the shadow of his father, who was one of the co-founders of Hamas, that murderous terrorist organization of which we should hear no more, God willing, one of these days. He became known as the Green Prince for serving as an undercover source for Israel's internal security service, the Shin Bet, from 1997 to 2007. So for those of you who are asking me, how do we know that Mousab really is with us? For 10 years, he was an Israeli asset. Because of him, countless Israeli lives were saved. Mousab was considered by the Shin Bet to be its most valuable asset within Hamas leadership, having supplied information that prevented dozens of attacks in Israel, exposed numerous Hamas cells, and assisted Israel in capturing many militants, including his own father. In 2010, Mousab published his autobiography, Son of Hamas, which many of you have read, and in 2014, his journey was featured in the documentary The Green Prince. The film received numerous awards, including Best Documentary Award at Sundance Film Festival, Best Documentary at the Israeli Film Academy, and Best Documentary at the Bavarian Film Awards. Since October 7, Mousab has become one of the most outspoken public figures in condemning the horrendous terror attack on Israel, stating, and I quote, "We have to eradicate Hamas. If we don't, humanity will pay a huge price." I would like to ask Mousab to join me here now so we can hear his insights into the origins of the challenges being faced today by Israel, the Jewish people, and by so many others in the West. Hopefully, Mousab can also share with us how we can move forward to better days. Please join me now in welcoming Mousab, Hassan, Yousef. Mousab, thank you for joining us here this afternoon. I'm actually, let me turn it on for you. Here we go. We are honored to have you here. Many of us have seen your face in the documentary. Many of us have read your book. But it's really an incredible opportunity to be able to see you live and to hear your voice. And let me be the first one to thank you for everything you've done for Israel and for the Jewish people. And I hope you find Las Vegas not only hot in weather, but warm in welcoming you. I wanted to ask you, and I've been really anxious to ask you this question. What was it like to grow up in Ramallah, surrounded by something that most of us only see in the news and read in the newspapers? You were part of that. You were part of the very core of an enemy that wants to annihilate us. What was that like to grow up there?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for the warm welcoming. I appreciate it. You know, the desert is my natural place. How was it like to grow up in Ramallah? You know, I try as much as I can not to speak bad about the people of Ramallah or the people of Gaza, because people think that I hate what's so-called Palestinians, not realizing that my mother is there. You know, how can I hate my mother, even though she does not speak to me? Even my father, who took the cover and said, you can kill him, some 14 years ago. I cannot hate him for what he did. It's just a matter of principle. As someone who grew up in that culture, and I transcend so many barriers to come to this place. This is not just switching sides or switching agendas. This is my personal evolution, the choices that I made my entire life that brought me to this place. But people, I think, who are in denial try to reduce my journey and accuse me with all type of things so they can stay in their comfort, not face reality or face truth. The reality in Ramallah and in Gaza is of the 7th century, not the 21st century. It's all based on tribalism. It's based on shame and honor, not right and wrong. It's all about the status. It's all about deception, canceling the rights of women, which immediately canceling 50% of the society. What is a society without women? So then there is a sexual repression. The sexual repression is leading to all type of crimes. Rape is the least to say of that. Child abuse is the least to say of that. But most importantly, violence. It's a very violent culture. It's a death culture. And I personally experienced so much trauma as a child and witnessed child abuse, not only in indoctrination by the Muslim Brotherhood and by the Palestinian ideology, but also many children suffer from rape, from sexual abuse, from beating, and domestic violence. So if this is acceptable by that culture, by that society, and they don't work anything towards helping the people, integrating, so what are we expecting from such a society? When we saw them storming on October 7th, that was not coincidental. Also, we saw the people celebrating the death, the corpses, the rape, and they still celebrate and enjoy inflicting pain on the other. So we are talking about a human disease, a human condition, and a very severe one.
You know, you mentioned something, what is society without women, right? When you see what's happening in the United States in the college campuses, and you see the students protesting, you know, and the LGBTQ community rising up against Israel and siding with Hamas, what goes through your mind when you see this? What do you say to these people?
This is the nature of chaos. They want intifada. Intifada literally means chaos. In fact, Palestine means chaos and disorder. So, in a state of chaos, you have so many extremes, opposing extremes. And this is a mind-blowing phenomenon, actually. I have studied myself. I have observed the fluctuations of my consciousness for the past 10 years on a regular basis, every moment of my life. And I was puzzled by the phenomena of the pro-Palestine in the past 7 months in a way that is shocking. Because it brought so many extremes in it. You will find the communists and the Islamists protesting for the same purpose. Then you find the feminists and the Hamas rapists on the same page. It's insanity.
Yes, it is.
And after that, you know, they carry a slogan, say anti-genocide slogan, while they're chanting genocidal chanting. They are so conflicted. They're so confused. They don't know the master that they are serving. And that literally represents the reality of Palestine, because there is no such thing. And I've been saying this, and people think I'm exaggerating or like an assault on Palestine. And I say, no, it is not an existing thing. It's an umbrella for all those who love chaos, who want to see destruction. This is what it is.
Wow. So I've seen you on many TV shows, right, with many hosts, both in America and in Europe, and you've been very, very successful in, you know, putting their allegations down and, you know, debating people on screen. what in your character, Mousab, has actually made you able to confront all of these people? And after you basically were a private citizen before October 7th. You had almost retired, but now you're back. So, and you're debating all these people all the time. What keeps you going on?
Look, when I started a long time ago, before I went public, I had about 10 years of daily effort trying to stop Hamas madness. Not only Hamas, also Yasser Arafat, the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, and their affiliation with suicide bombing attacks. So 10 years of witnessing bloodshed, and every time we failed to bring a suicide bomber or capture them before they reach their target. When the terrorist attacks happened, the Israeli intelligence would bring me the photos freshly from the suicide bombing scene. I would be the first to see that in order to identify the suicide bomber, to know who sent them. So there was no suicide bombing scene that I did not see the atrocities firsthand, and it was sickening. And day and night trying to capture those masterminds, the bomb makers, and those who are sending them. I came to realize that we were fighting against the ghost. So I decided to move on, because also my life was in a very dangerous situation. And when I came to the United States, I decided to write a book about it, which was, I don't want to say committing suicide, but bringing a death sentence over my head. Knowing that I would lose my family, I would be labeled as a traitor, people will misunderstand me, I bring shame on my family, and I might get killed in the process. And I didn't know that you would actually make money out of writing books. It was truly, I started writing the book on a curb, on a street curb, as a homeless person. So we wrote the book, and the book became successful, but also I had a great failure because I lost my entire family, and it was so painful for everybody. But progressives, or what's so-called liberals in the United States, canceled me because I touched on the ideological dimension to the conflict, which is the Islamic belief system. And the left-wing liberals, the Obama administration, and many other Democrats, they did not like my approach, that I was straightforward, that the ideological dimension, if we keep ignoring it, the problem will continue forever. So my reward was to lose my family and to get canceled also. And I was okay with that. So when I had a dead end in America, I moved on, and I went far away. And I lived on a small island for a very long period of time. And I start over. I started doing something completely different, and I became successful in it. And I really love what I was doing there. But then October 7 happened, and it brought me in the worst possible way. Why? Because I have warned everybody that Hamas is not good news. And I said it's not only Hamas, it's the Muslim Brotherhood. And I said also it's the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is not less dangerous than Hamas. They are the ones who created all this chaos, by the way. So now, when people did not listen, and I had to come back on October 7, I am fed up trying to do what's so-called hasbara. Time over for explaining myself, for explaining Israel's position, because Israel is fighting for its very existence, and me too. Many people, hundreds of millions of people want me to cease to exist for no reason. I haven't killed any of their tribesmen. Why do you want me to cease to exist? So when they push us to the corner, to this degree, then we will have to fight. And this is why I identify with the Israeli struggle, because with the Jewish struggle, we are in the same boat, dealing with the same savages. So now, Is this the time to sit down and rationalize with those who want to drag me into a rabbit hole, trying to explain every aspect of the conflict, and they are sitting in their comfort, and people are dying. Children are dying. Hamas is killing Jewish children in the morning for revenge. Then they are using their own children as human shields in the evening for propaganda. This is the reality of the situation. So I need to sit here with some Joe Schmo and go into their rabbit hole, try to, no, get to the surface. Talk to me. Who qualify you even to talk about this thing? Why are you angry? Why are you being emotional and protesting and building encampment at UCLA and Columbia universities? So these people don't qualify, and I think they have no clue what Palestine is. But they, I think, pro-chaos. They want to delegitimize Israel. They want to delegitimize a small minority, a religious minority that is very successful. And I think this is the core of their objection.
I think that one thing that's on our mind, Mousab, when we hear you speak, because you really speak with our voice too. Trust me, many of us sitting here could say exactly what you're saying, except we haven't lived it like you've lived it. What was the exact moment that made you change? What was that moment? What was the thing that got you to say, I have to switch sides. I can't do this anymore?
Look, if I tell you that there was an exact moment where I saw the light, I lied to you. And many people use this tactic to show the world that they became just better people. I don't think so. As I told you, this is an evolution. The chain of events that brought me here is a very long. It's full of adventure. It's full of taking risk. In order to know the truth, we must take risk, get out of our comfort, be able to see the other as ourselves, identify on a human level, integrate consciously. But if I look at the most important, let's say, moments where I raised the question, my experience in prison was an important one. When Hamas tortured Palestinians in Israeli prisons, as a result, hundreds of prisoners were killed and tortured, as I witnessed, for about 16 months back in 1996. And I asked myself the question, even though Hamas brought me the comfort, the security, the status, the prestige, the power, I saw that it was danger against humanity, against our society. And I asked myself, what if Hamas succeed in destroying Israel and building their state? Is this what they're going to do to our people? Well, this is a mini Hamas government in prison. They had ministers, they had Amir, they had everything. And this is
inside the Israeli jail?
In jail. So this was the question, and this was the beginning of my rebellion against my father's organization. He knew that. It's not that it was a secret. But it looked like he couldn't do anything about it. It's a monster that he created in theory. Then the monster kept growing on him to a degree where he lost control of it. And that's the difference between imagination and manifestation. Back in 1987, they were chanting in Ramallah, from the river to the sea. And they started the intifada. They invited so many demons into this intifada, opposing extremes, the communists and the Islamists and the nationalists, all type of people, and the rapist and the pedophile. They invited everybody with no moral compass, with no agendas, except revolution for the sake of revolution, for destruction. And what happened 36 years later? It was crowned with a genocide. So, in theory, it may sound romantic, from the river to the sea. But then, nobody's in charge, and it goes out of control. And this is why I'm telling America and Americans, be careful. And this is part of my firm stand that I'm not willing to compromise. It's not the time right now to play a mind game, not with me, because I have witnessed what intifada really means. And they targeted back in Ramallah and the Palestinian territories, they targeted educational institutions at the beginning, then they targeted economy, transportation, and this is how things went out of control. Prior to the first intifada, I was able to go with my father to the beach, to Tel Aviv, to the zoo, to Yafo. We did not have even one checkpoint. And when we got lost in Tel Aviv, the local residents of Tel Aviv helped us navigate our way. We drove our own car, and everything was peaceful. When the first intifada came, this is when things start changing, especially when we had mass stabbing and mass shooting, then the suicide bombing, then the Oslo brought Yasser Arafat, and legitimized, terrorism became legitimized. So, what are we witnessing here in the United States? They're targeting educational institutions, they're closing bridges, tomorrow they will target the economy, and they will have any reason for them to they just want to create chaos. So this is where we cannot compromise, and we have to stand firm, otherwise they are going to ruin civilization. This is what Palestine stands for. So for me, it's, as you see, the traumas of the past and the eyewitness within. It's not only a personal experience as much as what this force is capable of doing. If we let them do whatever they want to do, they will corrupt Earth.
You know, you mentioned the genocide word, and I want to push you a little bit on that. You had an interview with Dr. Phil a little bit after October 7th, when you said that Hamas really wanted to do ethnic cleansing, right? And that's part of what they were doing on October 7th, and that's sort of a way in which they worship Allah. What do you mean by that? Because a lot of American Jews still do not believe that Islam is by nature a violent religion.
It's not even a religion. Why would I consider it a religion? Then it's the only religion that there is a desperate need. There is a desperate need to say Islam, the religion of peace. The only religion. The Quran is filled with Jewish hatred. And of course, I understand why the Jewish people avoid to open a large-scale confrontation with a religious minority worldwide, close to 2 billion people. It's a destructive force. And this is why even America is compromising. The American government is compromising. All the major forces, superpowers. And the thing is, with the Islam, how long we're going to go ignoring this reality, the Islamic hatred? Then I say simply, if Allah hates the Jewish people in the Quran, and that's the main Islamic source, the source of legislation. It's supposed to be the divine words. So why am I expecting from the followers of that faith, of that religion, to love the Jewish people? So I'm not saying to go on a war with the Muslims. I personally am at war with them because I'm one of them. And I have the right to criticize and to say whatever I want to say. And I don't need the permission. I don't wait for anybody to give me validation to what I say. But for you guys, you don't have to do the same. But at least you need to admit that what happened on October 7th is inspired by some religious scripture. Okay. In the Bible, there could be some violence. There could be the death penalty. But it's the death penalty. It's not asking for a genocide specifically against a religion. You will not find in the Bible that say, kill the Muslims. But Muhammad demonstrated that when he annihilated the Jewish communities of the Arab Peninsula because they did not recognize him as a legitimate prophet. So now, whether if this narrative is true or not, or the historic account is accurate or not, this is what Muslims believe. It's based on two main narratives, Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham. And the two narratives describe in detail what Muhammad did to the Jewish communities of the Arab Peninsula. I personally think that they are not true, but Muslims take them literally. And Muhammad's action, Muhammad's sayings, Muhammad's deeds are considered legislation in Islam, second in importance or significance to the Quran. So if we are dealing with this, it means legislation. Hamas is not acting from void. And they have actually an accurate interpretation of their religion, of what they are doing. So for the Jewish people, we need to bring this awareness to the rest of other religions that include Hinduism, and this is what I've been doing with my friends close to Modi. And you may have noticed that he was speaking clearly against Islam because Hindus suffered a lot because of the Muslims and the Muslim violence. Not only the Jewish people, but Hindus, and India is about a little bit over 1 billion people. And I think this is where we need to join efforts, not to persecute Muslims or attack the Muslims, as much as we need to tell the Muslims as a majority that we don't accept your violent approach. Reform your religion or drop it completely. If you want to stay Muslims, no problem. But keep it in the 7th century. Don't bring it to the 21st century. There is no place for abusing religious minorities. So if Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism get united, not to attack the Muslims, but to stand firmly and say the violence in the Quran, the Muslims need to figure it out. And any form of it, anywhere, not only in Israel, in Indonesia, in the United States, in Europe, wherever it is totally rejected. If we have this firm, then we can push the Islamic regimes to do some change.
So that brings me to an important question, which is Israel's under a lot of pressure, right? What happens after the war in Gaza is over? What happens the day after? And everybody's telling Israel, look, you can't eradicate Hamas, you cannot eradicate their ideology, you cannot wipe them off the face of the earth, they're going to be there, there's nothing you can do, right? So you kind of like have to accept that reality, and you have to have a ceasefire. What happens the day after, Mousab? Because Israel's going to finish this war, they have to. It's an existential problem. And what happens the day after? If the Palestinian Authority cannot govern, and of course Hamas cannot govern, what's the future of the Palestinians?
Maybe we don't want Palestinians in the future.
Well,
and again, listen, when I say this, by the way, when I say this doesn't mean I'm not calling for ethnic cleansing, because Palestinians, there is no such thing as Palestine. It's not a race.
I understand.
Okay, that's number one. It's an ideology. It's an ideology. So, for example, Egypt, in the past century, they dealt with the Muslim Brotherhood by the lethal force. And they were able to eradicate the Muslim Brotherhood. And every time they rise, they just crushed them. Because when you have very dangerous ideology like that is out there to hunt and kill and loot and kidnap people and kidnap infants, blackmail the whole globe, then this is a big problem. We cannot tolerate this type of ideology. And this is, by the way, Palestine. Yasser Arafat was a Muslim Brotherhood affiliate. Hamas is a Muslim Brotherhood. Al-Qaeda was inspired by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is still a legal organization in the United States. Even though in Egypt, the birthplace of the Muslim Brotherhood been outlawed, the United States of America or the US Congress failed 3 attempts to outlaw the Muslim Brotherhood. In fact, they allow them into Congress, on Capitol Hill, in the US government. They consult with them, they hire them as advisors to just mislead the American naive politicians, and they've been working. So now you ask me about back to Gaza if it's possible. It is possible, and this is what we are doing right now. And we had no other choice but the lethal force, and the lethal force works. Now, we wouldn't be able to eradicate evil completely, but we can bring it to the from a wild tree to a seed. But the seed will always be there. And if we don't keep watching, then it's going to grow again, and it's going to be brutal. Some 100 years ago, it was the rise of the Nazis. It became appealing to the masses, and with no time, like a wildfire, Nazism took over in 5 years. And this is why I'm outrageous, because what's happening right now, what's so-called Palestine, is the new Nazis. It's a very serious problem, and it's not only in Gaza, it's global. So the world must be united. Civilized people, any human with consciousness must get on board in this fight. Because it's not only in Gaza. Have we forgot about Lebanon, where the situation is boiling up north? Iran, we still have another big problem, the Islamic problem. So, not to forget Europe. So we could be at the verge of a global chaos. And I think the world is inviting violence. Many people want the violence. They want revolution. They want chaos. They want global intifada. And this is why I've been saying from day one, don't globalize it. Localize it. Keep it in Gaza. What happened in October 7 cannot be just forgotten. And I'm speaking from a security point of view. As someone who was operating on the ground on a regular basis for 10 years, I knew that Israel has no choice. You know, people yesterday say, 200 people civilians got killed, and of course it's Hamas statistics, for the rescuing the 4 hostages. And they were upset, they were so sad. Naturally, any human being with consciousness would celebrate yesterday. But the pro-Palestine were saddened yesterday for the rescue of the hostages. And we tell them what's the alternative. Then they come, say, diplomacy. What diplomacy? They want to release mass murderers like Sinwar. They want thousands of Sinwar model on the streets, back on the streets. In what law? So, all those who are calling for diplomacy, ceasefire now, they want Hamas to stay in power, using Hamas propaganda. They want Israel to surrender. And this was Hamas' tactic from day one. They committed genocide on October 7. Then they wanted Israel to surrender on October 8th by taking the hostages. This is their tactic. And this is why, and this was my message to the hostage families when I sat down with them. Lift the pressure of the Israeli government. They don't have the hostages. They don't have your children. And redirect the pressure on Hamas and all the foreign entities that given legitimacy to Palestine for free, with nothing in return. Spain, Norway, they could have said, we might recognize a Palestinian state, but give us the hostages back. Make one condition. So it's not Gaza only. It's not Gaza only. We are dealing with a phenomenon. And the Palestinian syndrome, this needs to be studied, need to be addressed, not only on a political and other levels, most importantly, psychological level. Why all these people identify with Palestine? Why it's not a race? It's not an ethnic group. It's not a distinct language. It's a colonial entity. Whether you know the Romans empowered it or the British empowered it, whatever it is, just it's a hostile state. So we need to educate the people on the origins of this. And I'm afraid that it is not going to end in Gaza. It is going to drag and violence is going to spread. It could reach the United States. All what's happening, by the way, I'm not here to trade in fear or to scare you guys, but this crowd that protesting for Palestine today, tomorrow they will have an angry cause. They will always find an angry cause. And among us, people who are pro-violence, pro-disorder. So expect more of this. What's happening today is only indication. And this is why I invite many Americans to actually stand with Israel today. Because if we don't leash those unconscious people on the streets, then tomorrow they will come back 10 times stronger.
This is a difficult question, Mousab. The last time I was in Israel, I was in the Magen David Adom headquarters, we had a presentation of some of the stuff that was found on the backpacks of the Hamas terrorists who infiltrated Israel. And, they had the maps, they had the instructions, they had condoms. So they were prepared for sexual violence. This is not something that randomly happened. And I want to know, you that lived in their world, I understand, I can't understand. They get into Israel, they murder us. Why did they have to rape women? Why did they have to act with that sexual violence? Where does that come from in the ideology of Islam?
In Islam, it's actually justified to take women as booty. So in a war, and that's 7th century mentality. This is what supposedly Muhammad practiced, even though I doubt it, but according to most Islamic trusted resources, he demonstrated that by taking, for example, Safiya, which was the wife of the Jewish leader of Khaybar. And he slept with her the same day he killed her husband. This is according to one of the most trusted Islamic resources. Okay, so to Muhammad that was a booty. The Muslims say he honored her by taking her as a wife. So they will always justify the sexual violence. But throughout the Islamic history, what they did in Europe, what they did to Persia, what they did in India, they are invaders. And by the way, there is no difference between Palestine and Islam, or the Palestinian state and Islamic state, because both concepts depend on the destruction of all other civilizations. Palestine depends on the destruction of Israel as a condition for existence. And the Islamic State depends on the destruction of other civilizations in order to create the Islamic civilization. They cannot create of their own. They can invade, then they take all the intellectual property, women, enslave humanity, and behead men. This is what they did, according to their own history. So, we cannot ignore this reality. Now, rape was not only committed by Hamas. Rape was committed mostly by Gaza civilians. By the civilians. Those are the ones, by the way, back in the day when Israel, during the Oslo period, Israel allowed the Palestinian Authority to bring Gazans into the West Bank. And within weeks of the arrival of the Gaza people to Ramallah, it's my hometown where I was born, in the West Bank, near Jerusalem, the stories of rape were all over the place. And this is when the people of Ramallah said, we don't want Gazans coming to our city at all, because it's a Christian town, by the way. So it's a rape culture, especially rape against minors, male. Then the punishment to the rapist and the rape victim are the same. Kill them both to bury the shame. This is why you will find a father who kills his own daughter, or a brother who would kill his sister because of shame. Or she's a rape victim. It's better for them to just kill the woman to hide the shame. We are talking about, and we wonder, where is the sexual violence coming? Then they want women to be one thing. They want them all to dress in black and burqas, repress them, kill their potential. Then when the society is black and white, that does not have diversity in it, all the creative force, all the divine intelligence is absent from that society, they complain. Then when they look at their neighboring country and they see the diversity, even though it could be wild when you go to Tel Aviv, but at least people have the freedom. And that's the way of evolution. That's the way of the universal design. This is the way of God. And everybody is responsible for the choices that they make. You cannot just repress half of the society, then target minors and abuse children sexually and also by indoctrinating, then expect that there is not going to be sexual violence coming out of that society. Does not even qualify as a society. Then come and say Palestine, Palestine as an escape. Well, how can Palestine actually solve your problem? Your very foundation is rotten. And the world is really believing them. If we give them power, this type of people cannot be trusted with their own children. They are willing to sacrifice their children religiously. How can I trust them with territory? How can I trust them with a government? How can I trust them with any power? These people are not trustworthy. They haven't proved, at least to me, that they love their children more than they hate their enemy.
I wanted to just lastly ask you if there's any sign of optimism in the world. If there's anything that you can see after everything we've been going through that will turn out for the better, that maybe at the end of this, something will happen that will magically change things.
Look, what happened, the genocide committed on October 7, even though the Jewish people don't like to admit it, was a genocide. Because the very definition of genocide was manifested on October 7 and cannot be compared to the collateral damage that is happening in Gaza as a result of the use of human shields, even though Hamas statistics are untrustworthy. The situation is dire. It's not an easy one. And people are living in a virtual reality. It's for the first time they are face to face with death, the consequences of genocide. Instead of admitting that what happened on October 7 was a genocide and humanity stood united in the face of this situation, instead of saying free the hostages, they have been saying worldwide, in the millions, free Palestine. They choose a political ideology, a destructive ideology, over the interest of humanity. Even though they are just 130 hostages, but this is humanity. And so many failed to discern where do they stand, right from wrong, in this state of confusion. So I am optimistic, but first, justice must be delivered 100% with no compromise. That's number one. And no matter how it takes. And if they want to take it beyond Gaza, then we are going to go beyond Gaza. If they want to go to Lebanon, we're going to Lebanon. If they want to go to Iran, we're going to Iran. If they want to go even to Europe, we're going to Europe. Even here in the United States, nobody is above the universal justice. This is not up to the US president or the US Congress. So first, Justice delivered. Then after that, we can talk about the day after. But as of now, I don't know the bill. Maybe the bill is going to be much higher than what we are thinking. We could have finished the war months ago if it wasn't for all these hypocrites. Because they are complicit in the crime. They are complicit in the crime, and the blood is on their hands. So with that said, let's not be eager for a quick and fast resolution. It has been like this for so long. We have no choice now but to fight. And we will fight the good fight. I personally am willing to lose this form, my physical body, and never submit to a savage empire. Even if I have to fight until the last breath, it doesn't matter.
Mousab, I want to thank you. I know it's not easy every time you have to use all this energy to explain to people where you're coming from when it shouldn't need an explanation. And I really appreciate you spending this time with us and coming to Las Vegas and being our guest here. Thank you so much for everything you do.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mousab. It was really, really good. Dear friends, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to spend this afternoon with you, and hope to see you soon. And please do not forget to support Magen David Adom. Super important. Thank you very, very much.